They know there's no someone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The hour is 7 o'clock, and as mayor, I hereby call to order meeting of Laconia City Council scheduled for May 9th, 2016. As always, we will begin our meeting with a salute to our American flag. I would ask that you please rise and join Councilor Brenda Baer in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would note for the record that the minutes to tonight's meeting are being kept by City Clerk Mary Reynolds, and I would ask that she please call the roll.
Councilor Doyle.
Here.
Councilor Littman.
Here.
Councilor Bear.
Present.
Councilor Hamel.
Here.
Councilor Baldick.
Here.
Presiding Mayor Edward England.
Present. Let the record show that 5 city councilors are present this evening, all except Councilor Bounds, and a quorum has been established. We'll also note for the record that we are joined at the front table tonight by City Manager Scott Myers. The first order of business is minutes. And we have before us the minutes of our last meeting on April 27th. Those minutes were, April 25th. Those minutes were distributed to the council on April 25th. No changes or suggestion of changes were made to the clerk's office. So I ask if the council has any additions or corrections to suggest at this point in time. And in lieu of any of those changes, I will declare that the minutes of our April 25th, 2016 meeting are approved as submitted by the clerk. We have no items on the consent and action calendar tonight. So the next order of business, item of business, is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. This is the appropriate time on the agenda for anyone who wishes to address the council on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda. And before I recognize anyone, I would like to pass on some information that may be of interest to you. The matter of the state school property, which has arisen over the last 10 days or so, is not on tonight's agenda, and therefore this would be the appropriate place for someone who wishes to address the council, if there is anyone on that matter, to do so. However, I do have a piece of information to pass on to you, and that is that I had a couple of phone conversations with Senator Jeannie Forrest this afternoon, and during the last said conversation, she informed me that she is withdrawing her sponsorship of the amendment to a House bill that would have changed the status quo with regard to making offers on that property. So as of now, that is a moot subject. That amendment is no longer the Senate will vote to take that amendment off the calendar, and so we're back to the status quo in terms of how the procedure will be followed for the sale of the state school property. So I'm not trying to cut off anyone who wishes to address the council on that matter, but I did want you to know, if you do intend to offer remarks, that the situation has changed from what that we awoke to this morning. Okay, having said that, is there anyone who wishes to address the council tonight on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda? I see Mr. Wood.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, Patrick Wood of Laconia. I am obviously very concerned about the state school property. I live very close to it. I wander that property quite a bit. I would suggest perhaps that there be a subcommittee of the city council or some members of the city council and some public members be appointed to a committee to work with the legislature and other people interested in this, because I think there are some possibilities of a joint venture with private parties and the city and the state, perhaps, to accomplish our goals of making that property effective and useful again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else tonight on this or some other topic that's not on tonight's agenda? Mrs. Clark.
Good evening. Pam Clark, President of the Laconia Historical and Museum Society. And I come this evening, recently I was made aware of a very prominent citizen of Laconia who is going to be celebrating his 100th birthday next month. And I would like to propose to the council that we do something to honor this gentleman, and the gentleman I'm speaking of is Peter Karagianis. For many, many decades, he was very beneficial to the city of Laconia. We would not have the Belknap Mill if it was not for Peter Karagianis. And the idea has come up that possibly we could do an honorary street sign out here where the old Mill Street used to be and call it Peter Karagianis Court. So I'm proposing to the council this evening that they do this in honor of Peter Karagianis and his many, many years of valuable service to the city of Laconia.
Thank you. With the council's permission, I would add that subject as a second item under new business tonight. Is that okay with everyone? We can discuss that then. Okay, thank you.
And while I have everybody's attention, I'd just like to put in a plug for tomorrow evening at 6:30. We're having a 125th anniversary meeting for the city of Laconia, and I welcome anyone to attend. It's in 2 years, and we have a lot of planning to do. It will be at the new Citizen Building on Court Street, 352 Court Street, the Coldwell Banker Building.
Thank you. Anyone else? We got here. Well, Councilor Kenny, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
I thought I would join you tonight just to talk a little bit about the state property. I noticed in the article the other day, it mentioned something about governor and council, so it kind of caught my attention. And with that, Mr. Mayor and Councilman, I went ahead and contacted Administrative Service Commissioner Vicki Quorum to kind of get an update from Administrative Services perspective on that piece of property. And like any property in the state of New Hampshire, it first has to get a fair market value. At that point, Administrative Services hires a broker. They do an appraisal, and from there, DAS estimates. They have an in-house person that can estimate what the potential value of the property would be as well. First, they would, at that point, offer to the city or to the county. And at that point, if there were no takers there, it would move on to a private sale. But understanding what has gone on here the last week, it is the position of the Governor and Council that we're somewhat of a neutral party, and we're here to help out the city of Laconia to develop a good partnership with the state and to try to come up with some resolution to that property that works for the public and for everyone who's involved. So my office is available to the city of Laconia to come up with any type of commission, any type of kind of ad hoc committee to try to sort out some of the issues. Now, under the law from last year, it is still going to be put out to bid. So the question would be, does the city of Laconia and local control want me to go back to administrative services and suggest that we form a commission or a committee to look at both the local concerns and the state concerns? Because if not, they could potentially put this on the market here in the near future. And is that really in the best interest of the city of Laconia or to the state, depending on the wishes of everybody involved? So I offer my office as a kind of a focal point. Tomorrow, I'll be touring the state property with a gentleman from the state to get an on-the-ground feel for what's going on out there. I know there's many subdivisions. There's 3 properties, I believe, that are 99-year lease with the city of Laconia. There's other functional state properties that are actually functioning as we speak. And so there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to this property that, quite honestly, not that I've been here in this position for a long time, but there probably should have been a commission kind of formed a while ago. I kind of know the immediate history with regards to how we get to here, but it's how we move into the future. And I'm offering my office and my leadership to help out the city of Laconia, because I think we're at a critical point now where we probably need to know what's going to go on with that property in the future, and because it's obviously mitigation that has to occur with contamination, and also the potential use of that property is probably boundless as far as put in the right hands. And there's also the possibility that it might want to shift to the private sector, or it might be a public-private partnership that works for everybody involved. So I throw that out to you, and so I'm here to assist in the future.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilor Lippman, do you have a
This
question?
would, not a question, more of a comment. I think the way we understood the process to work by the legislation that was passed, that we would have a right of first refusal. That's your understanding still?
Yes.
And so, there could be, if it's put out to bid and there is someone that commercially wanted to take it and had a good plan for it, that might satisfy us. There hasn't been anyone that's come forward, I think, because of the mitigation issues around there. But just so you understood, I think from the council's perspective, that we're not adverse to a private interest getting it if it was going to be used for a good purpose to complement what's offered here in the city and the region. And
We're not set on public ownership, either short-term or long-term, as much as we are trying to gain possession, if you will, to have a say in the determination of how it gets used, as opposed to that being done without any significant input from the city itself.
That's right.
So if someone has a great idea for that property in terms of private purchase and development, we'd be all ears. Councilor Hamel.
Yes, I have a question. I'm not sure if you were there. When did you get on to the executive councils? A few
About
years
2
ago?
years ago.
Okay. It may or may not have been. But in the other biennium budget of the state, they had a law in there that the sale of the property was going to be for $10 million. And that's how it was offered to the city of Laconia, $10 million. So we had it appraised, and it came in at 2.1 or right around that ballpark. So we decided we weren't going to buy it for $10 million, then we made an offer for 2.1. Well, the state refused it. Now, this is the part that kind of got to me. The state refused our bid at 2.1, but offered it to the county for like 1.8 or 9. So I don't understand where, if we were going to pay 2.1, they would actually offer the sale of it to the county for 1.8 or 9, whatever it turned out to be.
I can assure you that the legislation was probably miswritten, and that this time around, I think if there were no other bidders, the state would look at your $2.1 million proposal as something that they could work with.
Okay.
But again, I want my office to really, use my office for whatever you need me for, because this is critical to the area and to the city of Laconia. And so there's been some of this has been lost in translation, and I think that we need to make it more of a focal point. And I'll bring it up to Governor and Council breakfast a week from this Wednesday. I'll bring in some talking points and highlight your concerns that I've heard tonight, and then bring it back to the governor and say, Governor, is it time to proceed as the law requires us to, or do you think we should really stop and work with the city of Laconia and maybe put together an ad hoc commission or a committee to see what would be in the best interest of both parties?
Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, the working with the city of Laconia, it would be nice. We talked over the weekend, and I'm going to go along with what we discussed, and where that property for roughly 100 years was either a state school or a prison, and the city of Laconia has had zero tax income from that property. I think it would be a goodwill gesture for the state to sell that for $1 to the city. And then we could turn around and maybe use the $2 million that we might have paid for it to do rehabs to the buildings up there or something along that line. So, just a comment from me.
Well, thank you. I have $1 to give you.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the $1.
Thank you for
And also, Mr. Mayor and Council, I have a resurfacing calendar year 2016, and there are 3 Laconia projects on here. So I leave this with your dutiful secretary here, and so you can take a look at that.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Okay.
very good.
Thank you.
taking the time.
Thanks for
Thanks for
coming.
coming tonight. Anyone else wish to address the council tonight on an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? Yes, sir.
My name is Dennis Kale. I'm a resident of Laconia. I just wanted to say I appreciate the council's efforts with that state school property, because I really have no faith that the state will is doing the right thing or has the city of Laconia's interests at heart, because it's the state that allowed all those buildings to deteriorate and the contamination to exist. And that property's right, as you know, you got 2 beautiful lakes on either side. And so I appreciate you guys' efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? That it? Okay. Interviews. We have 2 interviews tonight, both regarding the planning board. Mr. Contardo, I think I saw him. There he is, right in the middle. William Contardo is seeking reappointment to a regular position on the planning board for a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2019. Welcome, sir. And we all know who you are, but if you could tell us why you'd like to be reappointed, please.
Well, my belief is that if you live in a community, you should contribute to the community, and at all levels. And this is one way that I contribute to the community, giving back.
Okay, any questions? Councilor Hamel.
Just one, Bill. You've been on for a long time, and I'm sure you've seen how Laconia has changed, some for the good, some for maybe not so good. My question to you is, the demographics of Laconia is changing quite a bit, and on the income portion of that is what I'm talking about. What's your feeling in the future of more subsidized housing or low-income housing coming into Laconia? Just curious of what your thoughts are on that.
Well, we got to be careful on that. I'm not that I'm opposed to that, but I think you have to look at the people who own in the community, the local residents, their real estate values, and how does that affect that, or does it affect that? So I think that has to be, I don't think it's as simple as saying more homes versus not more homes. But I also believe, okay, I thought you were going to get into economic growth, per se.
too.
And I've always thought the school up there should be used for sites that would be generators of business, where the state, the city, the banks, and the residents that want to do something in the city can work together and have incubators up there And if you look at the amount of space that's up there, and in time, I mean, I don't doubt you could probably end up employing in a 3-4 year period of time, maybe 2,000-3,000 people that would stay in the area. So I think that in a strategic thinking, okay, and I say strategic 3 years as opposed to 5-year thinking, I believe that that's a way to go. You have a community, you have a college, community college, that you can work through. You have the state of New Hampshire, UNH, I think you could work through. And if you have the property or something like that, that you could start these programs, I think we could go a long way as a community. But I don't think that we should be doing things that prevent that or slow that down. And I think we have people in the community that are willing to work. I think we do have a lot of people in the community that are willing to work, but there's got to be something there for them. I mean, I've heard one time, we had a meeting one time, and someone was very impressed with a $25,000 a year job. You know, he said, I offer out a couple of $25,000 a year jobs. And I said, well, that's good, and that's fine, and that's nice. But, you know, we should be looking at a higher level of income for the community in general. You know, we should be looking at what's the national average, what's the state average, what's the New England average. I mean, we should be looking at levels $60, $70, $80, $90, $100,000 for, you know, and shoot for those type of jobs. And I'll be honest, I come from high tech. I've started a company. My associates, my partner, you know, he wasn't degreed, but yet he was one heck of a chemist, and he was known in the field. Now, how did that happen? That happened that he got into this particular company. It was a spin-off at MIT. A couple of the PhDs spin that off. And then he got into that world, and he was very, very formidable in that field. But I guess, you know, we just can't stay here isolated from that perspective. I mean, this is not this is a destination for many people when they retire. And I think that's a benefit. I mean, you go to Florida, you see a lot of small businesses that started out where someone who's 60, 70, 75 years old that had gone to Florida and really was marking time and then got bored and said, gee, I wonder if I can apply what I did, say, in Michigan or in Wisconsin, apply that in Florida and start a little corporation, and pretty soon they're employing 15, 20 people. So getting back to your question, though, I really don't know the answer to that. I think we have a need for housing. I don't know what the balance is. I don't know how we satisfy the influx of people that need housing, and then what's available to them. My personal opinion, if someone's making $900 or can pay $900 a month on an apartment, well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of properties out there, you know, that are at 3-4% interest. I mean, these people could apply that money to a house and have ownership. Now, how do you get them into that? That's the question. I think that's what we should be thinking in many instances here. You know? Yes.
Councilor Littman?
I think just in terms of balancing the demographics, not just economically, but from a family standpoint, what do you think the planning board could do in terms of your actions to encourage, you know, the better balance of families and to balance off our age?
Well, we're, as you know, we're legally bound by what comes at us. And if someone decides they want to invest, and this is all investment, you know, if they want to invest in the type of housing they want to invest in, or multifamily they want to invest in, that's up to that investor. Now, how do you move them in a direction that you want more favorable for the community? In some cases, you know, this is at the grassroots level. It can be discussed with them, and many times they'll say, well, this is your goal, objective, and work with you. But they can take poetic license and decide they're going to, by law, what they want to do. And if it means that they're going to put up you know, single-family homes, they put up single-family homes. If they can put up multiple, we have good zoning, as you know, and if you really looked at all the zoning in the community, but we do have good zoning. So I'm not sure whether or not you want to tackle that or not, but that wouldn't be my take. I think we got to measure who we bring in, what level person we bring in, and measure who an investor might be, or measure who, and I believe it's this, you know, there's a lot of businesses out there, and I'm really strong in this, so you know. And I've seen it done because of my experience in buying and selling businesses. You can take a business from Wisconsin, a mom-and-pop business, very small business, very successful business. They might employ 3, 4, 5 people. but they get it up for the market. They want to, and it can be moved to, say, Laconia. But it's got to have, we got to have the engines here in the city to stimulate that thinking and that thought. And that's usually done through financial institutions that are willing, unfortunately, they don't want to do it today, that are willing to take a risk with those individuals, take a risk with the city. And I think certainly there's a lot of maybe financial institutions in the area that we might ask to work with us on these projects and programs. And all you got to do is bring in, you have to have a location. All you got to start out with 10, 15 of these, and they're not big operations that you're bringing in. And that would employ people. And then you have to have the willingness of the people to participate. In other words, on this end, whether it's someone in Laconia or people in the area that are willing to step forward and do buy that business with that bank or whatever. But I say a lot, as usual, the biggest problem that we have as a nation in here, okay, as far as low income, I believe is a matter of income and what level of income are people at. And I think that's something that we should be addressing. I hear someone talking about the state school. Well, that's wonderful. But if that, what you mentioned, Bob, we'll buy it for $1 and let's see what we can do with it. Well, that's one thing you could do. You could collaborate with the different universities or schools and become an incubator of some level. With that thought in mind, now that catches on 5-10 years down the road, but that's strategic thinking, I don't know if I answered your question, but I mean, I don't have a problem with people. I don't have a problem with low-income people, if that's what you're asking.
I don't have a problem with it
Oh, you mean-
either.
okay.
But what I'm saying is, where is the limit of the disparity between high, middle, and low?
No,
Because in our schools, it's a known fact that free and reduced lunch programs are 70% of the kids. 70%. And today, we just heard that their special ed budget went from $400,000 to $650,000. So there's something there working that I think as a city, we need to look at.
and I think also what should be looked at is that if you were to look at these different websites that sell real estate, and they rank the community, or they'll rank a house in this community, and they'll rank that house and say, high school, give it 5 out of 10 score. Elementary, 2 out of 10. I mean, that's, so, and I get no pride. I went to private schools, and I'll tell you what, there was like 10 or 15 of us with one teacher. I heard someone just say at one of the meetings last week, well, we have schools wherever they're located, and they said we have 50 students and there's 5 teachers. I said, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. You get that ratio, and you don't have to have, all the bells and whistles and all the best for the physical facility. The important thing is what's the goal? Teach the kids at that, on a one-to-one, almost one-to-one basis. Now, is it economically feasible? I don't know, but if you're going to give up papers and pencils and paper clips or whatever you want to say, but you have the contact time with the teachers and the student, I think that's well worth it. So I don't know, I think I answered your question, but I don't have a position on that one way or the other. I think all the thing they were talking about, I don't care what we talk about, it has to be looked into, it has to be investigated. That economic view has to be done.
Counselor Bolduc, do you have a
Yes,
question?
I just want to thank Bill for coming forward, because he's been a big asset on this board, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you back there and keep doing the good work.
Well, thank you for your consideration.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Next up, we have Dennis Bothamley. Is he here tonight?
Let's see, Dennis.
Guess not.
He was
I believe we appointed him last year
Yes, he
for
was
Yeah,
filling
Phil.
in.
to fill an expired term, I think.
On the Water Commission.
Yeah.
Oh, that was on,
Yeah, it was on the, I know it's miswrong in there, it's Water Commission.
sorry?
Dick Breton's
You were,
position.
it's the Water Commission. I know it's wrong in there.
I'm surprised he's not here, because
Okay,
he said
I'm
he
sorry.
would be, but
This is for the Water Commission, you're right. I'm sorry, this was an appointment for the Water Commission, not the Planning Board. Okay, well, we'll move on. And note for Mr. Contardo's sake that according to council rule, we will be voting on this appointment at our next meeting. That's standard procedure here, and you're welcome to attend that meeting, but it is not required. Okay, communications, I don't have any. Public hearing. And I suspect that most of the people that I'm looking out there tonight are here for the public hearing, as opposed to just nothing good on television tonight. So we're having a hearing tonight regarding all aspects of the proposed construction of Phase 2 of the WOW Trail, including but not limited to the discussion of the elimination of a dedicated right-hand turn lane on New Salem Street and 12 parking spaces on New Salem Street in the area of Pittman's Freight Room. Notice of this public hearing was made in the Thursday, April 28th edition of the Citizen newspaper. It was also posted at City Hall, at the Gale Memorial Library, the Laconia Community Center, and the offices of the Laconia School District. As far as ground rules are concerned here, because we have a number of people here tonight, we're going to have a couple of short presentations up front, and then we have some correspondence from people who couldn't be here tonight who have offered written comment, and I will make reference to all of those. I won't read them all verbatim, but I will make reference to all of those that I'm aware of who have sent in written comments, and then those will also be included in the record for this meeting. I would ask that all speakers limit themselves, please, to 5 minutes at the most. After everyone who wishes to has had a chance to speak, if anyone wishes to speak for a second time, time permitting, I will recognize you for an additional 2 minutes of time after everyone else has spoken. So I will call this public hearing to order at 33 minutes past 7 p.m. and would first recognize the WOW Trail Committee Chairman, Alan Beadle.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Scott. Thank you to all of our supporters who have come out tonight and to everyone who's come out. I'm here tonight, I'm a resident of Laconia. I'm here with the president of H.E. Bergeron, Jay Poulin. They're a design company that specializes in civil engineering. They did Phase 1, and they've done the design for Phase 2. So there'll be questions here tonight, and Jay's here to help answer those. Once again, I'll let you know, councilors and everyone here, that we still have Wild Ball tickets to sell. I'll spare you the details. So we're going to go through and give the people in the audience an abbreviated look at Phase 2, a little tour down Phase 2, and we have a PowerPoint with some pictures here. And I'll get out of their way. And this will be just a few minutes to show you what the outline for Phase 2 is, and a couple of comments, and then... Microphone off for a second. Okay, so we're going to start on North Main Street. It's here that we're going to begin the proposed plan, which will essentially double the length of the trail. It'll get to Belmont Town Line and will connect with a trail that's in construction right now, approximately 1.8 miles, making this about a 4.5-mile recreation trail. Now, this particular shot here is the first area where we need council approval, and that's the elimination of the right turn lane opposite North Main there. We've worked with a lot of people to come up with the best solution and the safest solution to bring the trail across here. And what we've got permission from the Bureau of Rails to bring a path fairly close to the railroad tracks, but we still need to take the right-hand turn lane. And if I show you from another side here, again, the right-hand turn lane. This is the interesting thing about this is that people are crossing the road here already. This is a natural point to cross the road for people who come down the WOW Trail, or they come from the railroad building to go to the WOW Trail, or other businesses in the area. So it's my opinion we'll be making this a much safer crossing here as we put a crosswalk across. We've done a study of that right-hand turn lane. The study would show that essentially, and I've given that study to the council, would show that a very small number of people use the right-hand turn lane in percentage-wise. So we're proposing to eliminate that right-hand turn lane and with minimal impact to the motorist.
Can I interrupt you for just half a second here?
Yeah.
One thing I want to clarify, because it was mentioned in a letter we received, is I am presuming, the lane that the truck is in there has an arrow that says use this for a left-hand turn. I'm presuming that you are not asking us to eliminate right-hand turns onto Main Street, only that right-hand turns would also be made from that same lane.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to try to move this along, but feel free to interrupt along the way. Here we're going to be upgrading the sidewalk behind the railroad building. We'll have bricks and granite pavers to upgrade and enhance this sidewalk. We'll be upgrading the lighting to conform with the downtown lighting that the TIF Advisory Committee prefers. Here we're crossing the Pleasant Street intersection. We'll be putting a new crosswalk there. Presently, there is no crosswalk there for people to get across this area. So there'll be a new crosswalk there. And again, we're coming down New Salem Street here. These are the 12 parking spaces that we could not keep and get the WOW Trail through. There just isn't enough room to get through there and do it safely. We'll get back to this, but the trail continues down past Pittman's within the trail right-of-way. That's the state-owned land. And as it comes down the right-of-way, we run into these historic sheds that we were given a land, Stratum Tire donated land, so that we could get around these sheds and continue on our way. This was about a 3.5-year project here to get around these. We get out to Water Street, and once again, if you look down Water Street, there's a trestle over the Winnipesaukee River. Once again, an abutter stepped up and gave us an easement to get around the back of their property. That's Rick Foster and Foster's property. We'll go around the back side of his parking lot and then come up the side next to the river and get out to the Fair Street and cross the Fair Street Bridge. We come across the Fair Street Bridge, and a new crosswalk, again, parallel to those tracks, kind of from that red bicycle across on the left side of the tracks. This is looking from Bay Street, and we'll be coming right down that area there. It's in the state-owned right-of-way, and we'll cross Bay Street and continue on to Bartlett Beach. As we come into Bartlett Beach, we come off the state-owned land, we come into city-owned land, and here is our first vernal pool. And as such, we will be using a boardwalk to get across that so we don't interfere with whatever might live in there. We then go across the back of Bartlett Beach, which will be a great connection. And we have our first bridge we're putting in place here. We'll cross the bridge, kind of like this, where we'll then cross the tracks. There's an existing crossing which we'll upgrade. We'll cross the tracks here to the south side, and we will continue up to the Belmont Town line here. It's at this point that we have a split rail, permission from the Bureau of Rails to do a split rail. And we'll do that from this home here, the DuPont home, up to the Joyce home. This is looking from the sidewalk that exists back to where we just were. The trail comes up there on the right-hand side and ties into the existing sidewalk. Here we go up to the Belmont Town line, connecting into the 1.8-mile Belmont Trail. As I mentioned, with this connection, we're now 4.5 miles, a 9-mile out and back. You know, for the first time, we're going to start to see people say, you know what, let's get our bicycle let's go down to Laconia and take a 9-mile ride. And for the first time, I think we're going to see economic impact from this as it gets to this length and starts growing from there. Now, just a couple minutes on the matter of these 12 parking spaces. This is a difficult issue for us, and we tried a lot of different ways to avoid eliminating these 12 spaces, but the fact of the matter is we couldn't get through here without eliminating these spaces. I've spoken with many business owners downtown, and it's unanimous that a long-term parking strategy be developed. It's also unanimous that these 12 parking spots will not on their own make or break downtown Laconia and should not hold up the project. Parking in downtown needs to be addressed either way. Then there's the matter of Pittman's Freight Room. And we're really confident that there are many options available to Pittman's to continue in their business and for their business to prosper. Now, just a few examples. I've spoken with some of the owners across the street. There's a matter of an insurance certificate that is my understanding, if they have that insurance certificate, they allow parking for Pittman's customers after hours. I can't negotiate those or do those on Dick Mitchell or Dick and Connie's behalf, but those options exist. There's the Laconia Police Station just down the way with 19 spaces that I think they can talk to the chief and potentially use those spaces. There's 30 to 40 spaces just to the south at Stratham Tire, which would be an easy walk up the WOW Trail to the front door of Pittman's. There's over 100 spaces on 67 Water Street to the left there, and over 100 at the clinic. That would be within a couple hundred yards of access of Pittman's. And I just bought a couple of tickets to Meadowbrook for my mother-in-law, and there was an option at the end to pay $55 for VIP parking. And I looked to see what's the distance. It's almost 200 to 300 yards from the VIP parking spot to their seats, which is really longer than what we're talking about here. I also want to point out that on Friday night I had dinner at the local, and Jennifer and I, after we had dinner, walked to Pittman's for the show. So we get to this corner at Pleasant, and we're like, well, how should we get to Pittman's? Should we cross here where there's no crosswalk and walk down the dirt or in the road? Or should we cross the road here and then cross Pleasant, walk down the right-hand sidewalk, and then again cross the road with no crosswalk? What we're going to do for Pittman's is make it very easy for people who park in downtown to cross right here and walk down a sidewalk to their front door. I think that's going to be very helpful for them. Or people could ride their bikes there. The opportunity for us is now to proceed with Phase 2. I said this last week, if the project is held up until a makeup of 12 parking spaces is found, some of our funding may expire, other funding may be used elsewhere, and it could be years before we restart this phase. I ask the council and the people in this audience, some of whom who may want to delay the project in order to fix these 12 parking spots. Fixing the long-term parking of downtown Laconia has to happen 12 spots or no 12 spots. I ask that we don't hold up the project that'll pay dividends to the downtown and the greater community. With this council's approval, in May, we can begin construction in July and be substantially complete late fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to call on Luke Powell from our Department of Public Works. Let me get the lights back up here. And Mr. Powell will be happy to answer any questions we might have, but specifically he's here tonight to address issues about the crossing of North Main Street and of Pleasant Street.
Sure. Back in 2013, we met out there as a group looking at different options for that crossing of Main Street towards New Salem, and looked at 3 different options. Some of it was that the most beneficial, practical option was the one that is been proposed on the design plans that HEB had developed, and which Alan just showed in the PowerPoint. We looked at going a little bit further north and crossing across from the library directly across to the northerly side of New Salem. But that would also require a second crossing of New Salem, so in order to get back on the trail. We really believed that one crossing is the safest option to go. If we try to go further north, you're really starting to extend. If you go to Harvard Street, you're going an additional 520 feet. If you were trying to go to a traffic light protected intersection, if you were going towards Oak, that's 1,450 feet. We're about close to 300 feet from the Church Street intersection, where there is a traffic light right at the Main Street Church Street intersection. But what we really notice, though, is that when you're at the end of the present WOW Trail, the existing WOW Trail, and looking to cross, we're seeing that people are making that crossing without any protected markings in place. We concur with HEB engineers that option that they had proposed is the best option for a crossing there. And I believe things can be done to highlight that a crossing is there with signage and even with pavement markings that can be contrasting to make it really pop and alert motorists that there is a crossing there. I'm sorry, was there another question there? That was the main one that you had?
Unless you care to address the Pleasant Street crossing as well.
No, that was a pretty straightforward one for us. There really weren't many other options, and I'd be glad to answer any questions on that if there are. I don't have a lot to elaborate on at that spot.
I want to make a comment first, and then maybe Luke has the other answer. I asked Luke and Paul to get me some figures on the traffic count. We really haven't been given the numbers. We've been told that nobody uses the right-hand turn, but nobody gives us the numbers on the amount of traffic on Main Street from Church Street up. And the numbers are, during the peak hours on that section, there's 15,000 vehicles per day. That's a lot of cars. During the peak hours, there's 1,104 that enter or exit New Salem Street. My concern is safety. And when you have that many cars going up north and south on Main Street, bicyclists coming across the road and pedestrians are going to be in severe trouble, I think. There's also a graph here put out by the Master Plan Committee this year of the Planning Board showing bicycle crashes and pedestrian-involved crashes. And if you will note, The orange and the yellow spots on these maps, that's downtown, exactly where we're looking to do this. That's the Main Street intersection going north and south on Main Street. And I had the numbers of accidents, but I don't have them with me. Do you know how many bicycle and pedestrian accidents we've had in the last 5 years? Or the chief, I don't know if Chief Adams has them.
No, I do not.
No. I did have them this afternoon, I forget.
Chief Adams?
I don't have exact numbers, but just to put it into perspective, we usually average 600 to 800 accidents a year. I'd say less than 5% would be bicycle pedestrian accidents.
Yeah.
But I can certainly get some more concrete numbers for you.
Yeah, and with the increase of bicyclists and pedestrians with the WOW Trail, the percentage of accidents will also increase.
It's hard to say, possibly, but let's face it, the downtown has a lot of pedestrian traffic now.
Yeah.
And if you go out there at the crosswalks, or not even at crosswalks, there's a lot of people walking around, riding bikes. I think if it's marked well, and I think the motoring public will get to know where these crosswalks are, and hopefully will pay a little more attention. And obviously, the police department will be happy to help out in trying to keep an extra eye out on these locations. But the traffic, I think, is already there.
Oh, yes.
I mean, there may be a slight increase with bikes, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't foresee a huge increase in accidents. But that's just a guess on my behalf.
I hope you're right. Thank you.
Mr. Powell, do you have any reaction to our comments about the Main Street crossing?
I think having a marked intersection, marked crosswalk would very much help with reducing those numbers. I don't know if the numbers you have are at marked crosswalks or if they're in other places where people are crossing where there are no formal crosswalks. That I don't know if the numbers reflect just where those are. But there's one thing that we have learned is that in the transportation circles is that a crosswalk is no guarantee that you are going to be in a safe haven. The pedestrian, the biker, has to use all their due diligence to make sure that they're safe in crossing, and having signage and contrasting pavement markings, I think, go a long way in alerting the motorists that there is a crossing there. I think it can be improved with.
It's a very short distance from the lights at Church and Main to that crossing. You could have, a lot of backup there.
But I also don't think, the amount of bike traffic, it's not like it's going to be a parade where it's constant.
Well, that's what they
most
want.
days, so I don't think it'll be, huge backups waiting for 20 to 30 bicyclists, unless it's a special event, of course, but then we would be out there
No,
directing
Joe,
traffic.
How are the bicyclists and pedestrians going to get across? Here in New Hampshire, the pedestrian has the right of way. Are they going to hold up traffic every time somebody wants to cross over?
Well, I think yes, I mean, the traffic does have to stop. But there's crosswalks already, just up the road, and of course, the crosswalk at the lights as well. And yeah, sometimes traffic gets backed up a little bit, but it's a downtown, semi-urban environment. But
Any other questions for either of these gentlemen? Thank you both.
thank you.
Okay, next up, before we get to, I want to acknowledge for the record the letters I referred to earlier, and I will summarize them quickly here. These letters will be made part of the public record. as well as the testimony given here tonight. We have a letter from Robert Curtis, Executive Vice President of Bank of New Hampshire, and I'll read the pertinent sentence here. He's talking about the parking spaces on New Salem Street, and the letter says the elimination of the parking spaces in question would have a minimal impact on our employees and customers. While we are sensitive to the issue of available parking in the downtown area in general, we believe the benefits of the expanded WOW Trail will offset any detriment caused as a result of moving these spaces. That's from Bank of New Hampshire. Have a letter from the Lakes Region Tourism Association that's signed by Amy Landers, Executive Director. I guess the pertinent section is, we urge the Laconia City Council to approve Phase 2 of the WOW Trail and to continue to invest in completing this exciting and worthwhile project. We have a letter from Donna Delgado of Birchwood Way in Laconia, and she suggests that the Riverwalk, couldn't the WOW, she is opposed to the plan and is suggesting that couldn't the WOW Trail just continue down Messer Street, cross the street into the parking area behind the post office and link to the Riverwalk before heading down Court Street. I have not seen the particular plan for the WOW Trail, but this may be a less intrusive than losing parking spaces and the right-hand turn lane behind the railroad station. I am opposed to losing parking spaces near downtown. We have a lengthy letter from Warren P. Murphy of Clover Lane in Laconia, who is opposed to the project, who says denying this request, he's talking about the parking spaces, is the obvious thing to do. It is troubling to me the way the WOW Committee is manipulating city officials and you, the City Council. Anyone familiar at all with the WOW Trail plans, including the person making the promise, knew that it was impossible to complete Phase 2 of the trail in 2014, no matter how much money you gave them. 2 years later, the uncertainty was as great as ever you were duped. I have a letter from Scott R. Davis of Bell Hill Drive, who is in favor. I understand there is a discussion about the parking spaces along New Salem Street. I never noticed more than 2 to 4 cars parked there during the day, but there is concurrently empty parking spaces I see either along Pleasant Street or in the lots of Risfrost, Shumway, Laconia Clinic, and others. It is our sincere hope that the WOW Trail be built as designed and that other arrangements be negotiated for those few individuals who may use those few spaces. A letter from David Kennedy, owner of the Holy Grail Restaurant, Holy Grail of the Lakes Restaurant in downtown Laconia. With the resurrection of the Colonial Theater fast approaching and new businesses excited about new opportunities in downtown, the once abundant parking spots are slowly diminishing. The city needs to look at the overall projected growth of downtown parking together with local businesses to figure out this parking station dilemma. We cannot continue to eliminate parking spaces from the downtown area without replacing them. I am not directly impacted by the proposal to eliminate these 12 spaces, and I might feel differently if I was, but for the purpose of future growth, positive change, and the potential for increased revenues generated by people who will utilize this WOW Trail, I'm in favor of doing whatever is needed to keep this project moving forward. We have a letter from Ted and Jen Roy, the owners of the Water Street Cafe, suggesting that they would be willing to work with the owners of Pittman's Freight Room to share parking with Pittman's on nights of performances. And finally, I have a letter from Sarah Rosenblum addressed to the council. And she writes to express her support of approval of Phase 2 of the WOW Trail. Laconia is at a critical time in its existence. She's lived here for 20 years. Currently, it is in a perilous position, seemingly in a downward spiral caused by changing demographics, poverty, and drug programs. It is imperative that we make positive decisions now that improve our future and contribute to stopping the downward spiral. We do not have the luxury of waiting. The WOW Trail has been years in the planning. Funding is secured. Permits are ready. Please allow this project to proceed and don't allow the negative forces threatening Laconia to drag it down by losing this opportunity. And those are the letters. That council aware of any letters that I'm missing that need to acknowledge? Those are the letters that I have. Okay, now we'll open it up to public comment. We have 2 microphones here and here, and I would ask that you get as close to the microphones as possible so this, what you have to say, can be recorded. And would open the floor to our first speaker. And who might that be? No one. All of you came, there's a hand. Okay.
Somebody has to go first.
Mrs. Perry.
I'm Linda Perry. I live in Ward 6. I'm a lifelong resident of Laconia. I frequently shop downtown, and I can say that I never have a problem finding a place to park, whether I'm shopping during the daytime or my husband and I are coming down for dinner in the evening, with the exception of Pumpkin Fest. I did walk from my mother's that night. We also use the WOW Trail. I'm in support of the WOW Trail. We walk on it. We pedal our bikes on it. And we pedal our bikes downtown. And we go to All My Life Jewelers while we're downtown. We go to Wayfair Coffee, get something to eat. And we go over to MC Cycle, and we support the local businesses when we're pedaling our bikes. Councilor Bear, if I might mention, we pedal our bikes down the WOW Trail now, and we're crossing those areas where there are no crosswalks. So with having the crosswalks and the expansion of the WOW Trail, it's actually going to be a lot safer than the way we're doing it right now. So I'd just like to point that as a bicyclist.
We'll see.
No, I truly believe that.
So do
Thank
I.
you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we had another hand up. Here we go.
Michelle DuPont from Lake Opeechee Inn and Spa. I'm actually a reformed skeptic for this program, I'm proud to say. Originally, I was concerned, as most of you know where my property is. We've had our challenges, both with it being considered a public property, positive and negative uses of the property. The WOW Trail has reduced the unfavorable activities that went along behind our building, as well as has almost cut the vandalism down completely, so that's been a big impact for us. So we turn around, we completely support the program. I recognize the issue of parking. Myself, I don't have any issues with parking. We have quite a bit of parking where we are. At the same time, I will say from a business owner standpoint, an economic standpoint, so many of my guests come, and when they ask about places to walk or bicyclists or that sort of thing to get out, I'm able to tell them about the WOW Trail. The negative right now is that when I look at them and I say, okay, well, it's 1.8 miles or whatever. So for them, they're like, oh, so they have to run it 10 times in order to get their run in the morning. So this is very exciting to extend it, and I think it'll make a big impact, as well as we get a lot of guests who come in terms of the parking and Pittman Freight Room. We get a lot of guests that come and they want to do stuff, and they come for the music, they come from Meadowbrook. They actually take taxi cabs. They don't drive and look for parking. So that is an option as well. And as far as safety goes, I think that the WOW Trail defining those crossings is actually going to improve things. So that's just I encourage it.
Thank you. Who's next? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Henry Weatherby. I've been a resident of Laconia all my life. I am in support of the WOW Trail. I am an abutter on Keyser Court, and I've watched a lot of things go on. I'm not afraid to walk that stretch where there's been problems. That's me. But my wife and I and the dog have walked it for the past 13 years, and it'd be We're just thrilled to see a trail go in here. We really are. My concern is that if this doesn't happen, they've destroyed our property across from where I live. They've torn the fence. There's trash everywhere. They've cut the trees, and it looks horrible. Now, I expect it to finish now. I mean, you've done this much, let's get going. And the situation downtown, I lost my mother. She was hit by a car right by the clinic there. She was killed. That would not stop me from still doing what you got to do. Up by the hospital, they put in these flashing lights. When the employees cross, he hit a button, and his lights would flash. Would that not alert somebody that they're going to go across? And I don't know how many snowmobiles have been hit on those. I'd have to ask the chief how many snowmobiles have been hit. I don't know, but they whiz by there real fast, and there's a lot of people, but that's just my views that I just want to say. I'm totally in support of that trail going through. Thanks.
Thank you. Senator Hosmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. I'm here to offer my support of the next phase of the WOW Trail. You know, when I think of the WOW Trail, I think it's one of so many exciting things that are going on in the city of Laconia right now. We talk about new businesses coming downtown. We talk about restaurants, the Colonial Theater. And, you know, when I think of the WOW Trail, my family and I use it. And the reason we use it is because biking or running or walking in so many areas of the city, it's dangerous because there's not enough of a shoulder. And I used to enjoy to ride my bike around my house until I realized you have to ride in the right-of-way on your bike on blind corners far too often. And when we can take our bikes and bring them downtown and use them on this trail, then it's a lot safer. It's very enjoyable. And I think it just adds to the culture of excitement in this city. So I hope you would all look upon it favorably. I have no doubt that you've got the ability to weigh the equities here of what's going on with parking. And I have no doubt you're all competent enough as a group and individually to figure this out. And I hope that you do, because I think the next phase is really important to the continuing success of the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bassett. Mr. Bassett.
Hi, my name is Ruben Bassett. I'm here tonight representing Burrito Me, which I own, and Wayfarer, which I'm one of the owners of. I'm a father of 2 young children. I grew up a lot out in the Midwest, in Ohio, where they have taken out rail lines and put in hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of miles of bicycle paths. And where the town I grew up in was where 5 different paths converged. I'm a huge supporter of the WOW Trail. I can't say enough of what Alan is saying. Of when we start to extend it is when we will start to see the economic benefits of that. I also want to echo that I think we do have parking issues in this town, and I see that as a good thing. I hope we continue for years to come to continue to have parking issues, because it means people want to come to where we are and what we have. So I can hope that we, as a city, address those issues and look to expand on them. But to me, that is a separate issue from the WOW Trail. These 12 spaces should not be considered and weighted in that decision. The WOW Trail is going to be a fantastic thing for downtown, for Laconia and the rest of the region, and I support it. I also want to address some of the safety concerns that you had. I see some of those concerns as it is now. I mean, those 12 spots, when you park in those 12 spots, where do you go? You either have to cross the street with no protection, or you cross the tracks, or you walk around down to that intersection, again with no protection. I cannot see this being less safe than it is now. I see it being more safe. And I've spent a lot of time behind that shop watching the traffic, because that's where my shop is. So I support it 100%. I think we need to move forward. I think now's the time. And then I think we also need to address the parking issues, and that's kind of up to the council on how we do that. So, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Felch, oops, we got, you were the quickest.
Tony Felch from Lakeport.
I'm here to support the Wild Trail. I think delaying things because of a few parking spaces is the wrong thing to do. This is only going to benefit downtown Laconia and all of Laconia, for that matter. And basically, everything everybody said. I mean, it's a positive for Laconia.
All right, thank you. Someone else got up.
Maureen.
Oh, Mrs. Bienhart. Welcome.
I do have, I'm Maureen Vianars Pond. I do have a letter from the owners of Pittman's Freight Room, if you would.
Okay, if you give those to the clerk, she can distribute those. Thank you.
Okay. I also have it here. I don't know if you want me to read it or just have
Well,
the
certainly
council-
summarize it. Yes, please.
Well, I'll start with my business. I have a Imagine Gallery at 108 Beacon Street West. I think I mentioned this at the last meeting. When you come into that parking lot, it is a small space. It is 2-hour parking, but we find that a lot of people stay longer. I believe a lot of it is some of the tenants that do live upstairs, though, even though they do have their own parking to the side of me, which is a garage that they can access on their own. Excuse me. Our patrons take art classes. Some of the older people have a lot of supplies they bring with them, and they have to drop them at the door and then go and find a place to park. So there's a little mumbling about that as to where they should go. So we try to help them with that. I am a supporter of the WOW Trail. As I mentioned before, I've done a 40-foot mural, which had been vandalized a couple of times, but it wouldn't stop me from doing another mural. I enjoy it very much and certainly think it's a great idea. I am here also on behalf of Pittman's Freight Room, and because Dick and Connie are away, and they do apologize for not being able to be here, they did send me this letter. When Alan Beadle first approached me, meaning Dick Mitchell, about the WOW Trail, he seemed very interested in working with us to ensure a minimal negative impact on our property and our business. When the parking spaces on New Salem Street were discussed, I was told that I told him I could not accept losing any of those spaces, and he assured me that it would not be necessary to take those spaces. Regarding the parking closest to a building along the tracks and 12 feet from Pittman's front door, he offered a decorative fence and pavers like those in Lakeport. They would be used to enhance its present 12 feet from my front door, or if it is less than 12 feet at this time. Question mark, he wasn't sure. According to the current plan, the decorative fence is now chain link and has a 4x4 pressure-treated post as bollards just down the length of my property. I have not seen these unsightly bollards anywhere else on the trail. The only one thing that could make the appearance less friendly to a bride coming out of our front door would be to add barbed wire across the top of the fence. Back in the 1980s, properties were taken through eminent domain to create needed parking between Pleasant Street and Main Street. I bought the former Pittman building in 1988 and the former Goodwin Paper Company in 1990. I was hoping to develop the Goodwin property, but then the new Laconia Police Department took 104 parking spaces from which was public parking. I now needed to use the whole parking for my own parking. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, the caboose has been moved, and it has been moved onto their property. And what it is kind of used for now is as an island, so people know to go to the left of it when they go to the back of the parking area, and they go around and they come out on the right side of it to leave Pittman's in the evening or the daytime. When I approached the DOT about leasing the land between the tracks and my property, they couldn't consider it because it was now reserved for the WOW Trail. Losing access to this land eliminates my access to another 40 spaces. And now they want to take another 12 spaces along New Salem Street. This totals 156 parking spaces that I have lost since I purchased the property almost 30 years ago. Don Moran and Rist Frost have been both allowed parking have allowed parking all along, but not during daytime hours. And Pittman does have daytime events. Another point Alan made to get my buy-in for the trail was that it would provide a safe bike path for my nighttime customers. I realized from reading the sign on the Messer Street entrance that there is a dusk to dawn curfew on that trail. Other than Alan approaching me earlier during the planning process, my opinions have not been sought on this project that runs so close to the main entrance of my business. So close, in fact, that two vehicles cannot pass at the same time on my property in front of my main entrance. This means that customers will not be able to access my property lot while a van unloads their equipment or a caterer delivers food. Plus, the handicap spaces would be about 100 feet away from the building. And most importantly, fire and emergency vehicles will also be restricted, have restricted access for the same reason. The bollards and fence will also take away the area in which I am able to remove the snow that the city plows up against my building, which restricts the plowing of that area. We have a number of regular patrons that walk to the venue from Alan Rogers condos or dining at Hector's. When the businesses and the streetcar offices have events at Pittman's, they will no longer have easy access across the tracks. Our hard-earned business will not be as usual. It will be lost. The freight room brings in thousands of guests to Laconia each year. Hotels, restaurants, stores all benefit from this traffic. These guests who now come to Laconia for dinner and a show are not going to Guilford for the same. Downtown is finally getting business back from our surrounding town, and this poorly placed trail will throttle it. It should not be acceptable that a seasonal bike path with a dusk to dawn curfew is allowed to have this negative impact on our struggling downtown. I've been around long enough to remember the Riverwalk during its conception. It was supposed to be the centerpiece as well as the beginning of the trails that would connect downtown to the other parts of Laconia and beyond. It was a good idea then, and it would be a good idea now, without negatively impacting the entrance to my building with unsightly fences and bollards and significant losses of parking to myself and the other local businesses. Respectfully submitted, Richard Mitchell. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
My name's Miles Chase. I am a proprietor in the city of MC Cycle and Sport. I'm a resident in the city, and I'm also a avid cyclist that travels the streets of the city. I am for the WOW Trail altogether. I think, I know that on a weekly basis throughout the summer, I have customers coming in my shop looking to buy accessories, parts, tune up their bikes, to travel elsewhere to use trails like the WOW Trail in other cities and parts of the country. So as an entrepreneur, I'm a huge favor of this. Yeah, I know it's going to bring people to Laconia, tourists. It's going to bring people downtown. I think that's a huge plus. We need to look at the positives of this. Also, as a downtown merchant, there is going to be a parking issue. As of right now, we don't have one. We have a convenience parking issue, and if we manage the parking correctly, we can solve it. We can solve that. What's going to happen 2-3 years from now when the Colonial opens? That's I have faith in you guys to figure that out. Yeah, so I think I'm for it. And as an avid cyclist, I mean, I'm traveling through these streets daily, night and day, and having that avenue of the Wild Trail is all a plus. It's a plus for the kids traveling to school. It's a plus for families, and it's a plus for us athletes that are out there also working out, training. So I'm in favor of the Wild Trail altogether. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Laurel Berriman. My husband and Chris and I have owned a home in Laconia for 25 years. We've raised our children here. We use the Wild Trail, and we would love to see it get longer because honestly right now we drive so we can do a 10-mile walk or hike somewhere. And if we could do it in town, we would definitely stay in town to do it, and we just wanted to put our paver in the Wild Trail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Norma Sorgman. I'm a 30-year resident of Laconia, avid cyclist. In fact, my husband and I lead a group of cyclists through this city every Wednesday night and try to get to the back roads of the beautiful Lakes region. And the Wild Trail, especially as it exits to the west, would provide much safer access to Samberton, parts of Belmont, rather than riding on Route 11, which is hair-raising to say the least. I have a lot of empathy for the issue with Pittman's. I'm a fan of that shop. I hope that we can find a great way to solve that parking issue, which will likely be lost. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Edmund Balboni, live at 12 Clover Lane. Approximately 2 years ago, my wife was driving from North Main Street down New Salem Street and stopped at the stop sign at Pleasant Street and proceeded to go. She had the right of way. And a car came around from Veterans Square up to Pleasant Street. That must have been going fast because my wife went right into her and demolished the car, totaled it. Excuse me. That intersection is very, very dangerous. I think what needs to be done there, if you're going to have a trail going through there, is you have to put some kind of sets of lights that will control the traffic, the foot traffic going across. That is extremely dangerous. And I believe there's a lot of accidents that happen at that location. I also think that the crossing at Main Street also needs to be controlled by lights.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Collette, welcome.
Well, thank you. And my name's Kim Collette. I'm a resident of the city of Laconia. And I don't want to be trite, but there's such a thing as no pain, no gain. And I think what we heard with the parking spaces is that it's not going to be a complete win-win-win right off the bat. But I think long-term, the work that's been done on the Wild Trail, the work that still needs to be done for the Wild Trail, in order to be a real regional benefit for the city of Laconia and surrounding communities, I think there's a lot more work to do than to figure out how to replace the pain of losing 12 parking spaces. I think that the economic benefit is going to slowly grow to the point where there can be a real purposeful need and desire for people to come from afar, to ride bikes, to walk, to visit the growing downtown. I think there's a lot of opportunity, latent opportunity, but still prospective opportunity for the city of Laconia. And this is one element that I think is going to help move that forward. I would think that I would want my elected officials to help to share that vision and to be progressive to the point of saying, let's take this step. A lot of work has been done already. Great people are behind this, okay? People who have really worked very long and hard. They are sensitive to all of these issues. Even the lady that was talking about, she did the murals, she was reporting on the pain that a business is going to likely receive up front without negotiating other options. And I think with the collaboration that I know exists in Laconia and in this region, that this project can be successful and it can ultimately be a win-win. And I encourage my elected officials to move this project forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Chandler?
It's Martha Chandler, and I live at 60 Holman Street. And I think I hadn't really intended to speak, but there are two druthers here. One is I feel the pain for Pitmans, because I think Pitmans is a marvelously delightful institution for downtown Laconia, and I can see exactly what's happening to their parking situation. John and I have been cyclists. I sort of retired from that at 85. But we've logged hundreds and hundreds of miles on bike trails, and we loved every minute of it. A lot of it, and this is speaking to the road crossings, and I'm not sure exactly what you have in mind, but a lot of our cycling was done in the eastern townships in Canada, where they grossly overbuilt railroads, and they are wonderful bicycle paths. And this includes going through Sherbrooke, which we didn't do too often, but at all road crossings, they had narrowing gates, so that unless you were really, really clever, you were only smart to get off your bike and walk across and then get on your bike again. And yes, if you go to a place where there are several streets like the Main Street and Pleasant Street, so you got to get off 2 times fairly soon. But you know when they're coming, and they narrow, and you sort of have to dismount. And if you don't do it and you get hit, then it really sort of is your fault. But I think you have 2 things that are 2 very good druthers, and somehow I think you have to spend a little more time thinking about, or maybe working with neighboring businesses to see what can be worked out at Pitmans. But the other comment I would make is that over the years, from many years of bicycling, one of the things that John and I noticed was that at the beginning, in the early stages of these bike places, men used to get off and smoke. And every year there were fewer men, and you don't see men stopping to smoke at bicycle stops anymore. It's done wonderful things for health in Canada.
Thank you. Mr. Gagnon?
Good evening. My name is Mike Gagnon. I live at 29 Birchwood Way in Laconia, and I'm here in support of the WOW Trail. I have to tell you, my favorite thing to do is put my kids on the bike seats, ride down on a Saturday or Sunday morning to Aroma Joe's and get a coffee. Sorry, Ruben. But it's just one of those things that really makes our community great. I love being able to do that, and seeing the activity and the vibrancy of other people walking on the trail is just one of those things that makes me really proud and really happy to live here. So that said, I can understand some of the pain, but I think that the gentleman who said earlier, no pain, no gain, has a valid point. Unfortunately, I think for the trail to work, the way that it's supposed to, these things must happen. But I am here and speaking in support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'm Bob Bolduc. I pay taxes in Guilford, Laconia, and Belmont, and I've done some traveling in the past few years, supposed to be retired, and I've yet to go to a city that was prosperous that didn't have a good bike environment, especially in Europe. They're way ahead of us. They have this 10-foot marked trail, and they tell you before you get off the bus, don't step in there, that's for bicycles. And yet, I think the lack of respect for bicyclists in this state, and even in our own community, is really embarrassing. And it's so tough to ride a bicycle and not be intimidated, because there really is no long distance to go. I live in Winnisquam, and I just can't wait for the day that I can jump on a bicycle, which the Brat Trail will be now completed. And where is it going to go? Nowhere, unless this WOW Trail connects it. Yes, there's going to be some people that are going to suffer because of this, but why are people moving to Laconia? What do we have to offer? And right on top of the list is schools, the environment, and what are you doing? You're eliminating places for people to gather and get in trouble, which Laconia has plenty of them, and other communities as well. So if you have a trail that's well supervised, and we have the support of the chief here, and all the chiefs that I've talked to, they say, this is great, we're going to jump on our bicycles and we're going to patrol this. And when we see the bad environment, which is one of them on the Brat Trail, which is Hobo Jungle, they're going right through the middle of it, and these guys are just scattering because they see the bulldozers coming. This is good. This is clean fun. And how can you ride a bicycle on Route 3 with that much that much asphalt? If you're not paying attention, you get knocked off, and I have. So now I ride around my neighborhood, which is just it takes, much longer, and it's very boring to ride in a 2 or 3 mile ring. And if I go on to the Belmont, is even more dangerous. So my wife and I have a little trouble trying to get out on a bicycle, but to get on a bicycle and go from Winnisquam all the way to Lakeport in an evening and come back, I'm in business, and I talk to a lot of people, and I'll say, yes, go to Laconia, we got this now. And why move to Laconia? Good schools, good police, and a bike trail. And that'll be on top of the list of people moving into this area, is recreation. This is what we are, a recreation area. How many times have people canceled out on putting businesses here because we are a recreational area? Let's stand up, and it's up to you folks to support this thing and try to help these people that are suffering, like this poor guy that bought that business. But you have to look at what the benefit is for all the people, and then appease and help these other people, and keep the people informed that are affected. I had a problem in Belmont because I was not informed about what they were doing with my property until I had to sign this big paper taking, a third of my property. Keep people informed and work with people. Sit down and talk to people that are involved. And I'm guilty as anyone. I didn't see the plan till I came tonight because I'm busy. Supposed to be retired, but I'm not. But anyway, it's my fault. But I think you should do the right thing and approve this WOW Trail, Brat Trail, I don't care what they call it, get it done. The shortest distance between two places is a straight line, and don't let people get in your way. Put it in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dorothy Duffy, Whipple Avenue. I'm 81, so I don't ride a bicycle much anymore, and unfortunately I don't walk much anymore, but I am a very strong supporter of the WOW Trail. always have been. I think almost everybody that's spoken so far has been a supporter. So that is not the issue at all. We definitely want it. I want to tell you about the owners of Pittman, if you haven't been there. Connie and Dick Mitchell. I love to go to Pittman's. I love to go on Thursday night for the jazz. When I walk in that front door, I get hugged by Connie and Dick. And then their dog Rory comes and licks my hand. I can sit down at a table with people I know in a very quiet environment, open my little bottle of wine, get a free bag of popcorn, and watch Marcellus, DeFlalo Marcellus has been there about 3 or 4 times, and pay $12. That's a heck of a wonderful evening for me. Connie and Dick Mitchell have had many adversaries. They've had problems. They've had their place torched a couple of times. They have had other issues which I don't want to speak about publicly. They have been patient, calm, not knee-jerk reaction, directing their attention to the problem and solving them. The parking across the street at Don Moran's would be ideal. I hope that somehow or other the city can be very supportive of the Mitchells and maybe help them to use that for parking. At any rate, they also have taken an old building, a historic building that's very, very important. They put it to wonderful reuse. This is exactly what we should be looking for. It's a building you don't want to lose, but if you make it inaccessible for the public to use, you are going to lose it. One other thing, I saw the report on the bicycle safety, and I called attention to it too. I was kind of surprised by the number. In reference to the crossing at Pleasant Street being a very, very dangerous crossing, I do not agree with that statement. I've been living there for about 28 years. I've been crossing that crossing on a regular basis. I think it is one that works because it works with courtesy. You don't depend upon the light. You don't just go shooting out because you got the right of way, because you got the light. I saw you came first, you go first. I've never seen an accident there. So I don't want a knee-jerk reaction about all the crosswalks all the time, because you can create problems with that. At any rate, definitely support the Wild Trail. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I also would give consideration to that wonderful family, the Mitchells, that have bought a business here that I think the public needs, wants, and I think they deserve cooperation from the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bean.
Good evening, everybody. Craig Bean, 77 New Salem Street and 79 New Salem Street, the folks across the street from Pittman's. I'm going to let the council know, in 5 years, we have never been contacted by Pittman's in regards to ever using our parking lot by letter or anything. I have talked to Alan, Scott, and numerous people about, I was the one that, tried to work out the deal with the city to allow the city to come on board and lease some of it. But someone came to me, was very interested in the property, so I did not want to tie ourselves up in it. The Bean family is very supportive of the Wild Trail and has been very supportive in that area of Laconia between Pleasant Street Business and New Salem Street. The Salvation Army thrift store that rents from us, leases from us, traffic going through there is amazing. Probably, I'm going to say, it's probably one of the busiest businesses on New Salem Street. Traffic coming in, traffic coming out is unbelievable. I feel by also narrowing that road a little bit, the traffic speed coming around the corner from the southern side will also help out people getting in and out of New Salem Street, out of the Salvation Army property. In the past 2 weeks, since I sat here 2 weeks ago, I've paid attention to those spots, and also, I guess, as the residents in that area, I've traveled that road many thousand times a year. My business goes up and down. I understand the intersections. We've taken many processions through that intersection never had an issue getting traffic. So we've never had an issue getting through. So we're supporting it. If someone wants to come talk to us about getting access to the property, I could, if somebody came up, I can give you guys 12 spots tomorrow if someone had the appropriate paperwork to sign off, giving us a lease, monthly lease, putting us down as an additional insured on the property. I've already contacted my insurance company. We've got anywhere between 30 and 60 spots that after hours we're willing to give back to you guys. So, I mean, we just need the appropriate paperwork to be placed, and we'll be able to work this out for everybody to use. So, thank you for your consideration. Have a great night.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name's Dan Wilkins. I'm a Laconia resident, former golf pro at Laconia Country Club, and I was pretty skeptical about the Wow Trail when it first came on board, but I bought a bike last year for the first time since I was about 13, and I have been using it, and I will say I can see a real generational excitement going on down there every time I'm there. The young, the old, everybody gets together. My 75-year-old mom uses it religiously. I just can't see not going forward and extending this to bring such dynamic vitality back into the city of Laconia. So I'm all for it, and I hope we can get past this. I think we've had some great talk tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tim Kavanaugh. I've lived and worked in Laconia for many, many years. I've served on the Wow Trail Board from when it started back in 2001 until a couple of years ago. And I would hate to see this whole thing stalled over a few parking spaces, and I think there's been a lot of good, positive comments here tonight. I am very much in favor of this and always have been. I think it's what the city really needs. It makes the city more vibrant. It brings people in. When we started the planning and everything for Phase 1, I think there were a lot of questions, a lot of concerns back at that time, and I think Phase 1 has proven itself to be an asset to this community. I think the plan that the design and engineer people have put together is a solid and safe plan, as safe as they can make it, and I think Phase 2 will be just as much of an asset as Phase 1 was. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, Patrick Wood. I'm here in sort of a dual capacity. One is the chairman of the Downtown TIF Advisory Committee, just to reiterate the fact that the advisory committee strongly recommended support for the Wow Trail and offered to commit $400,000 to the construction of Phase 2 of the Wow Trail. So the TIF Advisory Committee is very much in favor of the Wow Trail and the continuation of the Wow Trail. As I indicated last time, the advisory committee was in favor of eliminating the right turn lane on New Salem Street as requested. As I also indicated, we could not reach a consensus with regard to the parking spaces. However, you've heard from two separate businesses tonight, one in a letter and one personally, who are willing to work with the business owner that's affected by these 12 parking spaces to help them meet that need. In addition, you've heard from Mr. Beadle that Stratum Tire was working with the city to give them land so that we could get around those two sheds for the Wow Trail. You also heard that a fourth local property owner has committed an easement over their land for the Wow Trail. As has been indicated by other people tonight, this city works together. We collaborate. We help each other. The 12 spaces are important, yes, but there are solutions. We can get those solutions done, but if we don't move ahead with the Wow Trail now, we may lose that opportunity. So as a citizen of the city of Laconia and one who does use the WOW Trail, I strongly support it, and I wish and I hope that you will do the same and vote in favor of moving this project ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moriarty.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. John Moriarty speaking officially in the capacity of the President of the Main Street Initiative. And by the way, I just want to make sure that everyone heard what Alan Beadle and Gretchen Gandini have been saying all night, which is that the WOW Ball is Saturday, May 21st. That's a week from this Saturday. Gretchen, can I give you my check? I think what we've heard tonight is great news, and it seems to me in keeping with what I reported to you last 2 weeks ago. By my count this evening, 25 people have spoken on the 26th, including the 8 letters. And again, it's hard to actually track exactly how people say, you know, what they're thinking. But of those 26 now people, I've only heard really 3 dissenting voices, and the majority of the voices have also said that parking is important. And I'd just like to test that and make sure I'm not missing that. How many people here tonight are in favor of the WOW Trail Phase 2 progressing? Show by a round of applause. How many people here this evening are in favor of making sure that when you go to use the WOW Trail in downtown, or to frequent the downtown businesses, that there is also parking available? Again, applause. So, by way of soundbite, I think you would agree that there's great enthusiasm for this project. I myself can't wait to ride the nearly 10 miles round trip. And at the same time, I'm not going to miss an opportunity. You know me too well. I'm not going to miss an opportunity to say that the trick for planning is not to plan for today. It's easy to plan for yesterday. The trick is not to plan for today, but rather to plan for tomorrow when there's an 800-seat auditorium and a 500-seat theater and some 500,000 square feet of fully occupied commercial square footage used. So please keep that in the back of your mind, that it seems to me that the community supports both the WOW Trail and your endeavors to improve and expand parking in downtown Laconia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, if we need a talk show host, we know where to go. Okay, anyone else? Well, we got 2 more here. Just feel...
Mary Jane Hoy, I live up in Lakeport. I think one solution to this whole problem would be some public transportation, which when I was a kid living here, we had. When I was in college, I had a job waiting on tables up in the Weirs, and I caught that 6:30 bus down by the tavern every morning to get up there. So how about considering that? It would probably relieve a lot of the parking problem.
Okay,
That's all I
thank
have
you.
to say.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Mike Sweet. I live on Cross Street, and my family and I have lived here for 3 years. And we moved from Concord, and I can't tell you what a great vibe this city has. It's like night and day. And from what I've seen, all the amenities, the businesses here in town, the WOW Trail is just great. And it's just a great little city. And when I see businesses wanting to help other businesses in terms of parking to make this thing move forward, it's like Christmas to me. So please, make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, don't want to cut anybody off. Anyone else need to speak?
Letter that I got copied on.
I'm sorry?
I have another letter. Do you want?
You have another letter? Okay.
She copied you on this as well, but she didn't send it until about 4.
Identify yourself for the record.
My name is Gretchen Gandini. I am the executive director of the WOW Trail. I got an email that you all got as well, but it didn't come until about 4:45 from Penny Patu, from Penny Patu Travel. And she said, I will not be attending the public forum regarding Phase 2 of the WOW Trail, but wish to express my support of the plans as presented. I see the continued expansion of the WOW Trail as an integral part of the revitalization efforts for downtown. It will provide a safe way for people to get downtown without cars, connect locals and visitors to Bartlett Beach, and add an important connection to Belmont in the expanding regional trail effort. I have committed thousands of dollars of my own money toward this project because I believe it makes good sense for the city. A completed WOW Trail will be an amenity for our region, showcasing our beautiful lakes to visitors and linking them to different parts of Laconia in a unique way. The opportunity is now to build. I encourage you to approve the Phase 2 plans and get it built this summer. Thank you.
Could you forward that email to?
I believe I'm just
Reynolds?
copied on it. I believe it went to the city council.
Okay,
as
if we
well.
could forward it to the clerk so we could have it a part of the official record. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I will close the public hearing then at, what time is it, 8:52? And bring the matter back to council for a minute here. I think the plan all along has been to have this item appear once again under old business at our next council meeting. Would be our next opportunity to have it for possible action. And is there anything that the council would like action on specifically tonight? Councilor Lippman.
I'd like to capitalize on the goodwill that appears here with respect to coming up with a way to bridge the parking situation with the Mitchells, and ask, I've done a little looking into the situation and why we haven't got a parking solution. I think if we created a meeting where that was sponsored by the city to facilitate coming up with a solution with the folks that are interested in making this work, I think it would be helpful to bring this to closure, because I do think that there's been some difficulty in getting engagement to really solve this problem. I think the project would be benefited by resolving that parking concern, and would ask that the city act as a facilitator of a public meeting to that end.
Okay, do you have a timetable in mind?
I would like to see that, I'm sorry, if I could finish. I'd like to see that happen between now and the next council meeting, if possible.
Okay, let's go to Councilor Bear first here.
The city has a parking committee. Per the city council's request, a parking committee was formed to take a comprehensive look at parking issues downtown. The first meeting was held on December 6, 2012. The committee consists of Brenda Bear, Andy Patterson, Robert Sawyer, Chris Santinella, John Moriarty, and Shanna Saunders and Scott Myers from the city staff. And I believe you were partially responsible for getting this committee.
I think this is a spot situation. Mr. Patterson's no longer with the clinic. Sean is no longer with us. I mean, there are a few people left, I think. I think we just need a forum to get out in the open what barriers there are to really solve this specific issue. And if we want to use it under the umbrella of the existing committee and add people, I think the manager wants to get his 2 cents in here.
Mr. Myers.
Thank you. So late last week, I think a lot of that legwork already happened, and between Mr. Beadle, Mr. Bean, and myself having conversations, there was offers made there on Mr. Bean's part, which I thought was very generous. I did some inquiry through our city staff into Primex, the city's liability carrier, and I would say that if this is the direction of the council to coordinate those efforts, we can do so very efficiently at minimal or no cost, and probably can handle it administratively in about a day.
Then I'd prefer that route.
Okay. Not that I'm against more meetings, but I think we can nip this one pretty quickly.
Thank you for doing that legwork.
Counselor Hamel.
Yes, I just want to let the council, I won't be here at the next meeting, so I won't be able to vote, but I am in favor of the Wild Trail continuing, the Phase 2 part of it. And if we can arrange something with the parking for the Pittman House, that would be great. But another thing, too, is, I keep hearing about the parking problem in downtown Laconia. This always seems to be a problem. We have a garage over here that is totally underutilized. There's 100 spaces plus on the top floor, and I don't think I've ever seen a car up there. So if the people downtown would use the garage, it would free up tons of parking for downtown. You need to use the parking garage. We're in the process of looking to repair it, put better lighting, maybe an elevator, an exterior staircase. But you got to use the garage. It's underutilized. There's over... Huh?
I thought it was under repair.
What am I just saying? We're looking into repairing it. Yeah, the second floors can be...
The third floor is closed right now.
Third floor is closed.
Difficult to get into.
Why?
2-0.
Well, that's... We're not having a debate here.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's underutilized, and it is. There's a lot of spaces that could be used there, that, cars could go there, it's free up parking downtown in front of businesses, so.
Anyone else?
And a truck will fit in there, because I put my pickup truck there.
Okay, well, thank all of you for coming tonight. If your express purpose was the WOW Trail, and as I said earlier, this will be on the agenda at the next council meeting, again, under unfinished business.
And there goes everybody.
Give everyone a chance to move around here for a second.
So where are you going? Amish country? No, just... Where are these people when something...
Something to them.
You know, it was funny. This week I had more phone calls. Today was all day long. And they were all either on the WOW Trail or the state school. Not one call about the school budget. And I thought that was funny.
Senator, you could wait for a minute?
It's a long day.
Are you going to the Secretary of State presentation tomorrow?
Oh,
they're all long days.
Huh?
They're all long days.
Yeah, they get longer all the time. I go to bed later and get up earlier every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have more business to conduct. If you could
Clear
move to the hallway, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Boom.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on with the rest of our business, and next up is the mayor's report. And I had intended to devote the mayor's report tonight to the state school issue, and so I've been saved from that.
Yes, all of us.
But I would note that I don't believe Senator Hosmer was with us earlier this evening, and so I made the announcement when we started this about Senator Forster's move today to take it off the agenda, and with the indulgence of the council, I would recognize Senator Hosmer at this time if you want to add anything to what we have already discussed or know on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I've tried to reach out to each of you today just to get you up to speed with the work that's been going on over the last week or so. And Obviously, like many of you, I had grave concerns about the process that was followed in introducing this amendment in the Finance Committee, which I'm a member, and also the intent of the amendment as well. Because though I share concerns with many people that we lack capacity in this state to address those who are in the suffering from substance use disorder, I felt that it was not the best use of the Laconia State School property, and my concern was that there didn't seem to be any transparency when it came to informing the city council and the citizens of the city of what the state intended to do. Over the years, I've maybe become a little defensive about that property because there's so many in Concord that seem to think the city of Laconia owes the state something because we have a Robbie Mills Field and some lights and a sidewalk. Well, I don't see it that way. I see it as, we've shouldered that property, property that was gifted to the state, never receiving a dollar of tax income on it, and never fully developing the property as it could be developed, if that's what the people of the city want. Unfortunately, as we all know, there's an issue with some waste there that it's going to create some obstacles to anyone who wants to purchase it and develop it. So, my intent here is that I think the state owes the city of Laconia something, and I would like to see, as I've said time and time again, it's not up to me, but I'd like to see the city purchase it. I'd like to see the state transfer the ownership of the property to the city of Laconia for $1. Because I think it's about time. And I think the state is tired of paying the upkeep costs of $300,000 a year of that property as well. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I do know that I think we should all have a say in the future of that property. And I think so long as it remains in the ownership of the state, the city will always be subjected to the whims of perhaps well-intentioned people, but a little misdirected in some of their actions. So I disagree with Senator Forrester on this issue, but I don't, I'm glad that she had an opportunity to speak with many of you and with many other people in the city and has decided to withdraw the amendment, so I applaud her discretion in doing that. I believe her intentions were good. I think the execution was just poor. That's all. So I have nothing else to add. I don't know of any other developments in regard to the amendment being withdrawn, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add as part of the mayor's report that I'd like to personally thank Senator Hosmer and also Executive Councilor Kenny, who was with us earlier this evening, for their help on this issue, both of them. A number of us have spent a fair number of hours in the last 10 days devoted to this issue, and that appears, at least for the immediate, to have been resolved to our satisfaction. And the cooperation we got from these two gentlemen was exceptional, and I think that needs to be recognized, so I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that.
You bet. And I'd also like to add that those conversations included a number of hours spent in conversation with Senator Forrester and Mr. Alex Ray of Ashland, who were the principals behind this amendment suggested. And I would also like to thank them for being attentive and reasonable and listening to us, and it was not at all an adversarial situation face to face, and I appreciated the decorum that accompanied those conversations, so a general thank you to everyone who worked on the issue.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say that I would like to ask, with the council's indulgence, that we put the state school property on a future agenda that relatively immediately. If the next agenda is too full or whatever, it could certainly wait in a meeting or something, but to pick a meeting to put this on the agenda in the not too immediate future so we can get back to the bigger issues that were hinted at tonight in terms of what the city's position should be. Just to remind the council that we're now back officially to the status quo, which means the legislature directed the Department of Administrative Services to sell that property, and their intent is to list it with a broker and to put it on the market. Now, that hasn't happened yet, but from the conversations I've been part of in the last week, I expect the Administrative Services Department is going to be under some pressure in the next few days, already have been, to proceed with that process and to get on it. And I personally have no objection to that. But as the city manager and I were told back December by the deputy commissioner of that department, they would like to have it on the market for 6 months to judge what kind of general interest there is on the open market for that piece of property. So that's where things stand, and we can talk about whether we want them to continue on that or whether we want to try to amend that process, as has been possibly suggested. So if you could, I'd like to have that on a future agenda so we can get back to that. Okay?
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
thought that this already took place a few years ago.
They brought it up, but they never
And
did
it was...
No, the active legislation
Was a year old.
was passed in 2015.
Yeah.
That's what supersedes everything right now. The amendment that was offered by Senator Forrester last week would have superseded what happened last year
Yeah.
and put us on a whole nother track again. But as of now, we're back on the 2015 track. There was some years ago, the legislature passed
Because
a bill to offer it to the city for $10 million. But
Both the
that
city-
act has been
Both the
superseded.
city and the state had somebody go up there and evaluate that property, and it was only evaluated for 200 and something thousand.
It was 2.1 million.
2 million.
2 million something. And I thought that's where it was today. But according to what, we're going to do this all over again now.
Well, so the one piece they're not going to do over again, as we, the city manager and I were advised last December, what don't want to do over again is they don't want to pay for another appraisal.
That's right.
So their idea was to have it on the market for 6 months and gauge from that process what the interest in it was and at what price level there might be a transaction, if any.
Because what stopped it before was nobody wanted to pay the kind of money to clean that place up.
Right, and that still exists.
I know.
So.
No.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, we're on to committee reports, and I do not believe we have any tonight. Liaison reports, any liaison reports tonight? None. Citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. Our audience is down to 3. So, is there anyone in our audience left tonight who would like to address the council on any matter that is on tonight's agenda? No? Okay. Finally, we get to the manager's report. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief so we can continue to work through our agenda this evening. You have 2 reports, updates in your packet this evening. The first is the financial and operational trends. We'll start on the first page of that report. We started the new assessing year as of April 1st, so we wiped the slate clean, and new value for the first month in this 12-month cycle is $2.3 million, basically on par with where it was last year for the first month at $2.4 million. Property tax collection still continues to be strong. Motor vehicle registration, also a sign of the economy, also continues to be very strong. I'll turn your attention to page 5 of the report. Boat taxes is that time of year. People can come in, and not only Laconia residents, but anyone who wants to register a boat in New Hampshire can utilize the services here in City Hall, Laconia, and register their boat and go out with the registration the same day without having to wait to do it in the mail with the state. So we are on track with last year's pace. I'm going to go out on a limb here, much like the police chief did with lifting the winter parking ban a few weeks ago. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the last winter storm cost update you will receive until sometime in the fall. So you can see the numbers bore out favorably for us this year. Just a reminder, one of the recommendations when I had presented the budget was to capture $100,000 of unspent funds from the winter maintenance budget and carry it forward towards our street paving budget for next year. So that recommendation will still be coming toward you. for you. The monthly economic development report is also there. Again, favorable trends on the unemployment rates for Laconia, the county, Concord, Manchester, and the state in general. Just anecdotally, you can just see a number of help wanted, help needed signs at a number of businesses that are out there right now. We also, on the second page of that economic report, we have the March CPI data, which is a component, Consumer Price Index Urban, the inflation rate, part of our tax cap calculation. We're through the first quarter of the year now with that number, and we're running at a rate of 1.1%. Two other items to bring to your attention. One is a reminder, we're having the meeting on Thursday night, May 12th at 7 o'clock at the Community Center in the Weirs on the Lakeside Avenue construction project, which again is a comprehensive project with sewer, drainage, streets, sidewalks, and water department, all with a comprehensive project that, again, we've spoken about for a few months now, targeted to begin literally right after Labor Day. The second component of that we'll be presenting is discussion about putting utilities underground down there while we're doing this major reconstruction, and also looking at a few other potential upgrades. The Weirs TIF Advisory Board, of which there are 3 members now, met for their first meeting last Wednesday, I believe. I was a part of that, so there's only 3 members of the 5-member committee, but enough for a quorum. Robert Ames was elected as the chair of the TIF Advisory Board, and the other 2 members were present as well. So that's Mr. Poirier and Mr. Driscoll. So we had a productive first meeting and let them get up to speed on a little bit of the background, talked about some organizational rules. But again, there'll be some good information Thursday night, and we encourage everyone to attend that meeting, 7 o'clock at the Community Center. The final item I'd like to bring to your attention is we will be beginning some work on the Messer Street Bridge over the next week or 10 days that is going to require not a shutdown of the bridge, but alternating one-way traffic. So there will be the short backups as there'll be signals on both sides for the light to trip as to one-way traffic alternating. But the bridge will remain open at all times. There'll never be a full closure for a period of time, but we will be on that alternating traffic starting. I'm not sure if it's the beginning of, or end of this week or the beginning of next week, but somewhere over the next several days. People
What are
should
they
look up.
doing?
Sort of some routine bridge work, but there's some work that they need to do on the decking, and it necessitates closing down that one lane while they work on it. So the traffic will be alternating. We looked at an option to close the bridge completely in order to accelerate the work to be completed. That would have been 4 weeks of that bridge being entirely shut down. And if not now, coming into, a busy late spring, early summer season, the other option would be to do it somewhere in September, and then you've got schools close by and buses and parents navigating the new routes. So we thought it was better to keep it open at all times and do the alternating traffic. So be on the lookout for that. I'm happy to answer any questions on that or anything else you may have tonight.
Any questions for the manager? Councilor Hamel.
Yes. Excuse me, Scott. Up at the Weirs, it was made mention for Bike Week that the lighting on the boardwalk up at the upper end, probably where the vendors are for the food, and Charlie and that, they mentioned something about that. I went up there. The shades on the lights are very like a smoky yellow color. They're not clear anymore. So I didn't know if maybe it might help if we looked into changing those and maybe put an LED light if it's possible for those fixtures. I don't know. But the lights have turned real yellow.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's diminishing the light getting out of them or not.
We can take a look at that. I'm not sure if an LED light would be compatible
Yeah, I
with
don't know either.
with that head on that pole. I did have a conversation with Paul Moynihan and his staff at Public Works, and they're looking at some options, probably to bring in maybe an additional light stanchion type of thing down there, which would really provide, significantly more light than maybe just changing out a lens or a bulb or something. So it's on our radar, and we will have appropriate.
We're looking
lighting.
at putting some floodlights down on that.
Yeah, because
I know Charlie was going to be putting some lights up somehow.
I had a conversation and with the additional revenue that the city is getting from the Amsoil rental space, potentially that could be, turned into a rental or something. So it's, staff has been working on it for a couple of weeks now since it was, I think, first brought up by Mr. St. Clair.
Okay, so they could look at the lights and see.
They'll look at that, but it may...
Because I noticed here on the Main Street, right by MC Cycle, they changed one of those lights. And
That was a new install.
really clear.
That was a new install, so that's probably the only one that is that bright.
Exactly.
And I don't even know if it's new technology. I'm not sure that the fixture matches up 100% because the other ones have some age on them, and I'm not sure if that exact model is even available anymore. But we'll explore that, but maybe some floodlights on a movable bank of lights down there as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else for the manager? Okay, we're on to new business. Item number 1 is on page 30 of your packet, and this is with regard to the first reading of Resolution 2016-06, authorizing a supplemental appropriation from the Special Education Trust Fund in the amount of $180,000 and a request to schedule a public hearing on May 23rd, 2016 during the regular council meeting. And there is a letter on page 31 from Dr. McCormick at the schools outlining the need for this. Any questions or comments before we get to making motions here? Okay. We need 2 motions. The first motion would be in order, would be to waive the first reading of Resolution 2016-06 in its entirety and to read by title only as presented. Moved by Councilor Bear, seconded by Councilor Bolduc. Any discussion? All those in favor of moving the reading of the entire resolution and to read it by title only, please raise a hand. We have 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion carries. So next up would be to move a first reading of Resolution 2016-06 relative to authorizing a supplemental appropriation from the Special Education Trust Fund in the amount of $180,000 and to schedule a public hearing on this matter for May 23rd, 2016 during the regular council meeting. Made by Councilor Bolduc, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Any discussion of the main motion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. Have 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion carries. Thank you. The only other item of our new business was the previously discussed request from the Laconia Historical and Museum Society to rename a portion or all of the so-called paper street, still referred to as Mill Street, in honor of Peter Karagianis, the name suggested being, this is Peter Karagianis Sr., the name being suggested as Peter Karagianis Court. So the question before the council is, the gentleman's birthday is June 25th, I believe, his 100th birthday. So we're kind of working on a timetable here, backing from that. And so I guess the issue would be, does council want to refer that to a committee at this point in time, or take action on it directly at a future meeting, or how do we want to proceed on this?
If you're going to change a street name, do you need a public hearing on that?
I've got to research, so I think it's a public hearing just so that our butters or anybody can come in and comment. And then additionally, it's probably just a cursory review, but confirm with the E911 system that there's not a similar sounding name that could cause confusion for public responders, safety responders. So let me, if you'd like, I can certainly, it should be pretty simple. I can just lay out the process for you and let you all know in an email if that's the desire, and from our end, it could move pretty quickly if that's the desire of the council.
Councilor Hamel?
I would suggest that we let the city manager do what he just suggested and not send it to a committee so that it'll be more expedient. And also, just my own comment, I would still like to see the Mill Street name kept. Probably the portion in front of the soda shop could still be named that, and because he had to deal with the mill, which the street or walkway in front of that.
So you'd like to see it limited from Beacon Street east to the footbridge over the river, that portion?
Yep. I mean, that's just my thought.
Yeah,
so.
I understand. So why don't we put this on the agenda for our next meeting, and we can have your report at that point in time on the procedure.
And if appropriate, if it had to go to the
So I
public
guess we could have a
hearing,
first
could.
reading on that night, and then a hearing and a second reading on at the first meeting in June. That sound like a reasonable timescale? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Clark. Okay, there's no other new business, and one item of old business, and that's on page 33 of your packet, and this is regard to the lot on Sweetbriar Way in Southdown Shore that was taken in lieu of payment in taxes, and the council moved to table that at its last meeting. So the first order of business, if we want to discuss this tonight, would be, a motion would be in order to bring it off the table. Is there a motion to bring this matter off table, made by Counselor Doyle, seconded by Counselor Bear? All is in favor of bringing this item off the table, please raise a hand. Vote is 5-0. And, okay, so you have a memo in your packet, and I will ask the manager to please brief us on what he has learned.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So following up on whether or not this was a buildable lot and the question where it was assessed at $40,000 and the sale was going to occur for $6,000 raised some concern. So we dug into it a little more to provide some additional detail. The background to this is a lot in Southdown, and my understanding is when Southdown was approved, it had to remain 80% green space and 20% of it could be built out. It was designed and laid out with lots, but it's almost as if the first lots that got built, kind of a first come, first served. So this is on the books as a buildable lot. But in 2004, the entire project had covered almost all of the 20%, and there was only an amount of 1,787 square feet available to be built when they last did the census of construction in 2004. From that date on, when they last did the census, if somebody added a deck, an addition, a shed, that would reduce the amount of square footage that was available. So the process for anybody to build on this lot would be, they first would have to do this census and determine what amount of square footage was still available to build without exceeding the 20% build-out. Second, within Southdown, they have individual associations, homeowners associations. They would need an approval from this specific homeowners association to allow them to build. And then, and only then, if they came forward to the planning board, would the planning board even consider doing a variance to allow them to build in there. So that would be the process. Somebody would have to put in some money and time to complete that entire build-out and determine what's available, then go to the homeowners association, then come to the city. Second of all, even if the thought was we should get $40,000 for this lot, the city would only retain the amount that it was owed, which is the $12,000 and change figure. The remainder would be turned over to the prior property owner. So there is some risk as to whether or not this lot truly is buildable. It's someone who has bought deeded properties from the city in the past, so I think they're well aware of the process. This is certainly a public document, so they're aware of this background as well if they look at it. But it's still a staff recommendation to sell it for the $6,000. There are no guarantees it's buildable. They would have to invest some money. We are paying a monthly condo association fee on this, so for us to hold on to it with no use, still the recommendation would be to sell it. And if the future buyer was able to successfully navigate all those hurdles and get a building permit, when we have an additional property on the tax rolls that's paying taxes, and they're buying water, and the water department's happy, and it's in Southdown.
He's not a butter, is he?
He is not, no.
Questions or comments before we get to making any motions?
My comment would be to sell it for the 12.
But we're not offered 12, we're offered 6.
6. So just say, do a counteroffer. Say, we need.
See, my feeling is that we take the 6, because if we hold on to that for another year, we're out another $2,300.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that somebody's going to come up and offer us more than, the other offer was 1,000?
Correct, that was the other offer.
We've already covered our costs. We've already covered what we have into it.
Anyone else?
I don't know if this is accurate or not, excuse me, if this is accurate or not, but my understanding, the offer is from someone that is in the building mode. I mean, so they're taking a risk on it because they probably think there's a reasonable probability. I mean, in terms of counter-offering, doesn't mean that I'd like to see us make the counteroffer and see where we land. And we don't have to make the decision tonight. We could.
Another month wouldn't matter. I don't know.
I just think we're giving. I think it's too sweetheart of a deal. And I appreciate the fact that we're not going to be able to be a beneficiary of the extra dollars either.
And I don't know off the top of my head, I'll have to look at it, whether or not we can make a counter or whether we have to go and advertise this again. I don't know that to be able to tell you right now.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
I mean, if we have an offer, since it didn't exceed the amount that was due the city, that's why it comes to the city council. If it had exceeded, it would be handled administratively according to our code. So I don't know that we can make a counter on this, but we'll certainly look into it. But it may be that we either have to reject it and then go out to bid again on it.
And how many months?
Okay, so what's the
We can certainly
preference?
table it if you want while I get that information.
And what time frame are we looking at if it goes out for bid again? We're looking at 2 or 3 more months?
It'd be 10 business days. We would typically probably advertise this for and then get in review, and we might find ourselves in the same situation. If the bid didn't exceed, it would have to go on an agenda and come to the city council, so it could be 4 or 6 weeks.
Okay, but so we'd still be looking at another $200 to $300 in costs because of the condo fees and the association fees.
I believe the fees would be prorated monthly, yes.
So it sounds like we have 2 possible courses of action tonight. We can proceed with the motion to approve, which any counselor could make, or we could, again, accept a motion would also germane to table once again, with the thought behind the table that the city manager would be instructed to check on the procedural correctness of whether we could make a counteroffer or whether it has to go back to.
Is there realty fees involved?
No, it's a direct purchase between the individual and the
No
city.
boundary lines need to be done or any of that?
Nope, there's no real estate commission, there's no professional fees with a surveyor or anything.
By selling it, we get what's owed us, plus we get somebody that's going to continue to pay taxes on the appraisal. And if it's buildable, it's going to be worth a lot more in taxes.
But the tax lien on it is 12,000, not 6, right?
Well, it's the taxes plus a 15% penalty on the assessed value. So 15% on a $40,000 value is $6,000. So we're owed $6,000 and change in taxes, any lien fees that we did, any certified mailings. That's what we're really out. With any property we deed, there's a 15% penalty if we choose to enforce it.
So if we added those other things other than the penalty, what would it be?
We'd basically owe our costs were what, $6,352.68.
Right. It's within a couple $100 of what our actual hard cost and taxes owes and any expenses incurred in leading the property would be.
Does anybody want to make a motion to table?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the sale.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Counselor Doyle to approve the sale of the tax-deeded property located on Sweetbriar Way, tax map ID number 250/272/12/009 for the price of $6,000, which is an amount less than unpaid taxes, interest, fees, and charges for the property. That motion was made by Counselor Doyle, and it was seconded by Counselor Bear. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. 5 votes in the affirmative, the motion carries.
You won me over.
Just like we were spending $1 million.
Okay. That's it for unfinished business. No nominations or elections. Council comments. Any council comments tonight?
I want to thank
Okay.
the mayor for his hard work on the state school property.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
And Counselor Hamel was involved, Counselor Lippman was involved as well, so thank you to him.
He's involved.
He set up the original discussion between myself and Senator Forrester, which turned to be, after a couple more conversations, turned out to be fruitful, so we thank him for that. I have the unfortunate bearer of news here, Counselor Bear, that we have the need for a brief
Oh, sure.
non-public session tonight. So, and for our audience, don't expect it to have any business taken care of other than perhaps sealing of the minutes when we come back in. So I would entertain a motion to enter non-public session according to RSA 91A, :3, paragraph Roman numeral 2, for the item D, the consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property which, if discussed in public, would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adverse to those of the general community. Can I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Counselor Bear willingly and enthusiastically makes that motion. Counselor Bolduc seconds it, and I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yes.
Counselor Bear?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Bobbitt?
Yeah.
It is 9:31.
Okay, we're in non-public session at 9.